brought to the roster.
I don't know if we'll know that answer until next year, because I think it's going to be the transition of last season that's going to tell the tale of it being a net positive. Again, we were pretty understood with the fact that they weren't probably going to win the World Series, but it was fun to pretend like they were going to for a little bit. Listen, it's not a jab.
You got to get in it to win it.
It's not a jab. Like they were a fun team. They made everything more exciting, and now it all didn't happen at the end. We were expecting the collapse in the playoffs, but now that doesn't happen. I'm a big David Ross fan. I am. But now the question is, okay, how does this team regroup? How resilient are they from this end of the season?
In one of these Sun Times here, there's probably the poll that they had yesterday where it was like 51-49 on should you keep David Ross. That's how how serious it's gotten.
Where is the Ross
among
anger
the fan
coming
base
from? Because I don't get it.
It's because they didn't make the playoffs, and they say the manager's the obvious person that could have gotten them through better managing.
They had a massive run differential and probably should have won a lot more games.
That's
right?
an indictment.
You know,
yeah,
sure. But can you think of specific moments that David Ross made a move or didn't make a move?
But overall,
But do you think
it's going to be lineup construction, which is always an argument in baseball.
Okay.
But
it's his job to stop the slide, and that's the main thing. As an atmosphere provider, it's his job to make sure they don't play tight, and they didn't. To his credit, they didn't until the very
end when it matters most.
And
so that's
did.
what worries me a little bit.
And all that is fair, and the lineup construction, all of that. But I think it was a net positive, first of all, because coming into the season, if I said, hey, they're not going to be eliminated until the last week of the season, forget about the how. Just the fact that happened. That means they were a competitive baseball team all season long. Let's start with that. But also, in terms of, I agree, looking into the future is going to, be a bridge as to whether or not this was a good year, a step forward. That depends on if Cody Bellinger is back. To me, that's the number one question.
A lot of offseason questions. Let me say this about Ross. I think he's a tremendous communicator with both the front office above and the players below.
Right.
I think he's intuitive. I think he's great with relationships, and he's a great atmosphere provider and vibes provider. And I don't think it's time to move on from him, in my opinion.
I would agree, and I think the outrage for baseball managers is just so quick these days. It's just so short-minded. Look at Torey Lovullo with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They gave him an opportunity with the rebuild. It's now coming to fruition. I'm not comparing those two managers, but now finally Ross has a table set.
You know, a lineup gets tweeted out 3 hours before a game, and the outrage starts before the first.
Yeah, social media has changed how we view everything.
It's like lineup construction, really. Like I don't. I mean, we all that factors in. That's important. Obviously,
I just think it's fair to have Ross on the hot seat.
He deserves
now.
absolutely
not
another
like a
year,
burning
of course.
seat.
No. I think before he didn't have good enough team to do anything with. This year he had a good enough team to do something with. He did a little something but didn't do enough. And now it's like, okay, if the front office does its job in the offseason and gets him the parts, next year he will be squarely on the hot seat.
There you go. You know what it's going to be? It's a no excuses season.
Exactly.
Kind of like the no excuses season we were expecting for Justin Fields.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
Hey, man, it happened.
Receivers and such.
The transition just made itself.
What a segue.
The Bears and the Broncos this afternoon on the lakefront. Will Justin find a groove? We'll discuss on the Reporters
Justin Fields
right here, presented by Miller Lite on the Marquee Sports. You are watching The Reporters, brought to you by Miller Lite. Right here on the Marquee Sports Network, along with Marshall Harris of CBS 2 Chicago and Kevin Powell and Joe Brand from WGN Radio. I'm Matt Spiegel from 670 The Score. I love great players. And the other night, after a dispiriting Cubs loss, believe it or not, I watched the highlight reel of Connor Bedard in his first preseason game, and my goodness, the skills just jump off the screen anytime you get to see him. We happen to have a Blackhawks pre- and post-game host right here, Joe Brand.
Hi.
How good is Connor Bedard going to be from the get-go, and how good might the Blackhawks be?
Look, even I'm wondering if I need to pump the brakes a little bit on this kid, but every time he's faced with a different challenge, not only does he succeed, he's one of the best guys out on the ice. Going into World Juniors the first time, he breaks Wayne Gretzky's record. Following year, he shatters the record with 23 points in a short amount of games. All right, first game in a Blackhawks sweater, hat trick. First game in a preseason game, some NHL competition. He gets 2 assists for the Hawks, only 2 goals, including the game winner. He's making casual fans understand how much he stands among the rest. He's the best guy on the ice in his first preseason game. We're going to get another glimpse of him tonight on Sunday night against the Detroit Red Wings. But it's almost Kane-esque, and there are other people that are already saying he could be better than Kane.
Connor Bedard throughout the entire season.
And that's the thing. They were competitive last year, and I say competitive on a game-to-game basis.
Yeah.
The head coach, Luke Richardson, is doing a fantastic job of getting a roster that wasn't supposed to win in a position to potentially win every game last year. There were like 6 or 7 games that were kind of out the window. That was the 3rd worst record in the NHL. That's what that head coach was able to do.
So they've got a foundation now for him to slide into.
And that is the best thing, I think, going forward for this team is Kyle Davidson, the general manager, is being very patient with all of this. He's not going to accelerate the rebuild.
A lot of veterans around him, too, which I like. You saw him on the bench
Different veterans,
talking
too.
With Hall.
All right, back to Bedard, though. Come on.
I'm sorry.
Here's
Don't
the
distract
thing.
me from my steak.
But no, exactly. But for the casual fans and for the rest of us, I think what I love so much about him is that he is an artist, but it's necessary artistry.
Exactly.
It's like when Barry Sanders would make a crazy fun move because he had to. Or when Patrick Kane would do the same thing. So having that level of skill and artistry in town is going to be so fun.
His stats last year, 71 goals, 71 assists. It's not just the scoring ability. It's the surveying the ice, what's my best opportunity right here to create a goal. Not to score it, not to help it, to create a
I think
goal.
I'm the oldest